So you want to create a blog using Next.js 14 incorporating the newest technologies? Well, you have come to the right video because that's exactly what we'll build today. So in this video we'll build a blog, as already said, using Next.js 14 and the app router, not the pages router. Then we'll store our content in Sanity.io, which is in headless CMS using the Quark query language. Then, of course, we'll style our application using Tailwind.css and Shadcn UI, which offers accessible and styled components. And of course, we will also make dark mode work, because what is a modern website without dark mode? And the nice thing is that the dark mode theme preference is stored in local storage, so when the user refreshes the page, the theme preference is still kept. So that's very cool. And now let's check out the demo behind me, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And now let's go. So now on my screen you see what we'll build today. So this is the blog page, as you see. On the top we have the nav bar with the logo and the theme switcher. I can right here choose, for example, the light theme, and you see the background color changes and everything else also changes. If I now reload the page, you will see that the theme preference is kept persisted and we don't see any flash. I can now click on a blog article, so let me click on this right here. I click on a button and you see we get redirected to the blog route. So right here you see now the title, a little heading, the image and the content. We also right here use the Tailwind CSS typography plugin. That's why you see that it's styled very nicely, and for example this bullet list has blue bullets. So that's exactly what we'll build today. Now you see right here that this page is very quick. That's because this page is of course cached and we use revalidate tags to revalidate our page. Our content comes from Sanity and everything works and will also be deployed. I hope now you enjoy this video, you learn a lot, and now let's go. So to get started, I will cd into my desktop directory, cd into my YouTube directory, and I will run npx create -next-app at latest to install the latest package of Next.js. The CLI will now ask me a few questions. So first of all, we will name our application, let's say Next.js blog. Then we'll use TypeScript, we will use ESLint, we will use Tailwind. We won't use the source directory, but we will use the app router, and we won't customize the default import alias. And now the installation will take a bit, so let's wait for that. So now the CLI has now finally installed Next.js 14 successfully, so now we can go to Visual Studio Code and open the project. So now you see I already opened the project in Visual Studio Code, and if you want to do the same, you can go on top File and then click on Open Folder. But now, right here we have just the default template that the CLI installs for us. And if you, for example, go inside of the app folder and inside of the page.tsx, this is for now our default index page. We can actually test out and see how it looks by opening our terminal. You can either use Command J or go on top, click on Terminal and New Terminal. But inside of here, let me run npm run dev to start our dev server on localhost 3000. So let me open that in Chrome. So I have now opened Chrome on localhost 3000. Let me zoom in a bit for you guys, because that's probably a bit zoomed out for you. But again, what's that? That's the default template that our CLI has installed for us, and that's the default index page in that sense. Now, of course, we won't leave it like that. We'll showcase our blog with the individual blog posts on which we'll click on later. But for now, what do we do? There are two options that we can start with. Either we create the UI, so what we see as a user on our screen, or we create the backend logic using our CMS, which in that case is Sanity. And I personally think we should start with the backend so that we can automatically connect our frontend to the backend, and with that it will be much easier to create the UI. So for now, let's head over to Sanity, our CMS. So I'm now at Sanity.io, and Sanity.io is actually an headless CMS where we will store our content. And now you can use Sanity for multiple of things. For example, as I already said, a blog post, or in that sense a blog website, a e-commerce store, or actually anything where you want to store your content. And now I will use Sanity because I actually really like the query layer. There are multiple other alternatives, like for example builder.io, or I don't know, Strappy, or anything else. But in my opinion, Sanity.io is very nice to use, pretty cheap. They have a generous free tier, and that's why we'll use Sanity. But now to get started, let me click on Developers, Documentation, and then right here we have the Getting Started tab. Let me again zoom in a bit. Now let's scroll down a bit. Right here, create project first of all. And now if we scroll down a bit, the first step is to install Sanity Studio. And that's exactly what we'll do right now. So let me copy this CLI command. Let's go back. Let me stop my dev server actually. And then let me clear it and paste the command. Now, what exactly do we do right here? Well, we install a new Sanity Studio project in that sense, or we create a new Sanity Studio. So right here, we choose a clean template. You can, of course, use already a predefined template, but then again, what would we learn if we would use a predefined template? So let's use a clean template. Then we create a project, we give it the name of Sanity project, and we use a dataset of production. One thing I will change is the name. I don't want to name it Sanity project, but I want to name it, let's say, Next.js 14 block. I think that's a better name. Let me now click enter, and now it will ask me to install the newest package. Let me actually do that. This will take a second. So now you see right here the CLI tells me I have already an account with sanity.io, and it's also linked to my project right here, or to Visual Studio Code in that sense. If you get an error right here, that probably means that you either A, don't have an account with Sanity, or your account is not linked with your, I guess, workspace in that sense. If it's this case, just follow the instructions. It's very basic and you should be up and running in a few minutes. But now for the first question, if we would like to add configuration files in our Next.js folder, no, I don't want to do that. So let me click on N. Then for our project path, I will say Sanity. And then I will use TypeScript, of course. And then the last thing is what package manager do we want to use? And that's, of course, npm. So let me click enter, and this will now take a bit. So let's wait for that. So the CLI has now finally installed Sanity. So what does that mean? We have now created a new folder, which is the Sanity folder right here, with a lot of files. They're not very important for now. All we actually need is the schemas folder. So for now, let's actually go back to the docs right here. Let me click on create a schema, and right here you will see what is the Sanity Studio. Again, I would highly suggest you guys to read through it if you don't really know what Sanity is, what Sanity Studio is, and what the whole concept is. But again, for now, let's skip that. Right here you see the file layout, and that's also exactly what we have. That's the file layout. The only difference right here is that we use .ts ending and not a .js ending, and that's because we use a TypeScript project right now. Then if we scroll down a bit further, right here you will see how we create a schema. And as you see, it's quite simple. You create a export default object, and then you give it a name, a type, and a title. Now, the important thing is the name is always lowercase. Why is that? That's because you will actually query by this name. So I would suggest you guys to make it as simple as you can and don't overcomplicate it. Then for the type, it's always a document. Why? Because you create a new document, a new schema. Then for the title, you can actually do whatever you want. Right here, they just uppercase pet, but you could also say, this is the title for pet, whatever you want, because that's what will show up in your Sanity Studio. And then we'll have a fields array with multiple objects with the fields which you want to use. So for us, it would be, for example, a title, a little slug, a hero image or a title image, however you want to name it, then the content, etc. So that's actually what you do. As you see, it's quite simple. So now let's actually imitate that and do the same in our project. So let's actually right here go inside of our schemas folder and let me create a new file called block.ts. Now inside of this block.ts, we will do the same as here. So let's get started. What we'll have to do is an export default. This is an object. And as I already said, we have now to give it a name. For the name, I will just do a lowercase block. Then for the type, this will be of course document, since I want to create a new document. And then for the title, let me just say uppercase block. So that looks good. Now we'll have to create a fields array with individual objects or individual fields. So now let's first of all start with the title, because each block of course has a title. Let's give it a name. This will just be title. Then let's give it a type. And the type of course will be string, because a title is a string and not a number. And then we'll have a title. And for the title, I will just say title of block article, something like that. Now the next field I want to create is the slug. Why do we need a slug? Well, that's because I will actually later on use the slug as a unique identifier. That means later on our URL will actually host our slug. And that's actually better than to use the ID. Why is that? Well, that's because of SEO purposes. So now let me give it a name. So the name will be slug. Then the type will actually also be a slug, not a string. And let's also give it a title, and let's say slug of your blog article. And I think that's fine. Let's give it another field. And let's say, what else do we need? We have a title, we have a slug. How about a title image? Because what I want to do is have inside of my blog cards always a title image. So let's give it a name. Now for the name, let's just say title image. And then let's give it a type. The type will just be image. And then for the title, let's say, I don't know, title image. I think that's fine. So now we have a title, a slug, a title image. Let's also create a small description. So let's give it a name. This will be small description. Then let's give it a type. The type will now be not string, but text. So let's do text. And for the title, let's just say small description. So now what's another important thing? Well, of course, the most important thing is the blog article itself, so the content. And for now, we haven't created that. So let's actually create a new field. And now for this, let's give it a name. I will say content. Now the next property which we need is the type. And now the type is interesting since I will actually give it a type of array. And I will give it a title. And for the title, let's just say content uppercase. Now the interesting thing is I gave it a type of array. And Sanity now assumes that this field content is an array. That's of course not what I want. I want to get a rich text editor. And to make it work, I will have to tell Sanity what type of array we want to use. So let's right here use a new property, which is of. This is an array with one object. And right here we'll have a type, which will be block. So now we actually created a type array for our field, which has actually a type of block. So our rich text editor should now actually work. And to see it, let's actually see our Sanity Studio on the web. To do that, let's open our terminal, again either Command J or on top on terminal and new terminal. But inside of here, let me first of all clear everything. And then let's do cd in our Sanity folder. So right here, our Sanity folder. And now inside of here, I can do npm run dev to start our Sanity dev server. As you will now see, this will open on localhost 3333. So let me open that in Chrome. So I'm now on localhost 3333. The important thing is right here, you should choose the login provider which you have used to create your Sanity account at the sanity.io website. So for me it was GitHub, that's why I will use GitHub right here. So now you see I'm in the Sanity Studio dashboard. And what's one thing that we currently see? It tells me a warning right here. No document types. Please define at least one document type in your schema. So what's exactly the problem? Because at the end of the day, what have we done? Right here we have created a schema, but it does not show up right here. Well, the problem is right here inside of our index.ts file in our schemas, we have to actually define or actually import our block schema. So right here we export a empty array right now, which is called schema types. And inside of this array, we have to define each schema which we use. So right here we can now define actually our block schema. So let me just say block and let me import that from /block. If I now save that and go back, you see it reloads automatically, and now I get an error right here and it tells me unknown type document. Did you mean document? So the error I made is I misspelled document, pretty silly mistake of me. So let me actually copy the actual name. Let's go back to the block schema and let me actually rename it to the correct spelling. So if I now go back and actually click on block right here and create a new block right here with the plus icon, you now see everything we need. We have a title, we have a slug, a title image, a small description, and our content, which is a rich text editor. So right here I can actually use the headings H2, H1, H3. I can do an underline or italic or bold, whatever I want. So you see that works. Now there's one thing I don't like right here currently, and that's our slug. So the problem I have right here is actually that I have to manually type my slug. I don't want to do that. I want the slug to actually be generated automatically on the fly. So how do I do that? It's quite simple. Right here we have our slug field, and what we can do now is actually add an options property, which is an object, and give it a source. And what's the source we want to use? Well, we want to use the title. So what I mean with that is I want to generate a slug based on my title. If I now go back and save that actually, you will now see it reloads, and in a second we should right here see a generate button. So if I now create a title, so let's say, hey, from this video, I hope you like it. And if I now click on generate, you actually see the slug right here automatically generated. And the nice thing is for each space right here, we use a dash. So this works perfectly. So now what I think we should do is actually create a few block articles, and then later on we'll fetch it from our front end and create the UI corresponding to our schema. So let's now create a bit of content. And for the content, what I want you to do is go to my GitHub actually repository, and there you will see all of the blog articles actually in Markdown. You can just copy them and paste them inside of here, so you don't have to create anything by yourself. But again, if you want to create the blog articles by yourself with ChatGPT or whatever you want. So now let me create about 3 or 4 blog articles, and then I will come back. So as you see now on my screen, in total I have now created 4 blog articles, and as you see I've created right here the title, the slug, a title image, the small description and the content with a bit of h2 tags and then a bit of normal p tags. And now there's one important thing you should do right now, and that's check that everything is published. If it's not published, you will see right here on the right yellow, I guess, I don't know, icon for a pen, and that means that your edit is not published. So please make sure that everything is published with this green icon and no yellow icon, and then you should be good to go. So now I think what we should do actually is create the UI and then actually connect to our backend, to Sanity, fetch the content, show the content, and then we are finally done. So let's head over to Visual Studio Code. So I'm now back at Visual Studio Code, and let's go in the app folder inside of the page.tsx. And as I already said, that's now our default index page, which was shipped with our default template. So what I want to do now is first of all again start our dev server. For that, right here in our terminal we have this plus icon to create a new terminal, and then inside of here I can do npm run dev to start a new dev server. This will open on localhost 3000, so let me go to Chrome and open that. So now you see our dev server is finally again running. So what I want to do now is delete this default template. I don't like it, I don't need it, I don't want it. So let me delete everything inside of the return statement right here. And what I will do is return a div element and a h1, and let's say hello from the index page. Let's see if that works. And we see right here a hello from the index page. Now there's currently one thing you see, and that's the background is black and the foreground is white. That's fine, but in theory, in a normal application, this wouldn't happen. What would happen is that we would have a white background with a black foreground, so with a black text. And why does this happen right here? That's because if you go to globals.css, so the CSS file, you will see a bit of style right here. Again, this was created while downloading the default template, and we don't need it. So I will delete everything, but leave all of these @Tailwind classes. So just leave this @Tailwind classes and delete everything else because we don't need it. If I now save it and go back, you now see we have the white background with the black foreground. That looks very nice in my opinion. So now what's the first thing we do? I think the first thing we should actually do is create the navbar, and then inside of the navbar we'll have 2 things. First of all, of course, a logo, because why not? And the second thing, which is more important, is the theme switcher. So the button with which we switch between the black background and the white background. So let's implement that. Now to do that, that's actually quite simple. There are 2 ways you could do that. Either you would just write the code right here inside of our page.tsx, which is fine, you can do that. But what I will do actually is break it up into a component, into a separate component, because I just think it's a cleaner look. So inside of the app folder, let me create a new components folder, and then inside of the components folder, I will create a navbar.tsx file. Now, why do we use a TSX, not a JSX? Well, that's because we have a TypeScript project, as you know. So now let's actually start with an export default function. Let's give it a name of navbar, and then let me just open our function right here. Now let me create a return statement actually. And then right here, let's just for now say a nav element, and then inside of here h1, and let's say hello from the navbar, just to see if it works. If I now go back, you see nothing. Why is that? Well, that's because our component right here is currently not imported anywhere. Right now it's just a file which is not connected to anything. So what I want to do is go back to my page.tsx, which is the index page, and then just import that right here. So let me import navbar. This is imported from our components. And if I now save that and go back, you now see hello from the navbar and hello from the index page. So this works very nice. Let's now again go back and let's now actually style our navbar. Let me first of all start right here with the nav element. Let's give it a class name of wfull. Let's do a relative class. Let's do flex items, which will be center, and justify, which will be between. Now, why do I use justify between? Or what exactly actually means justify between? Well, you can think it like that. So our nav element is currently our, I guess, parent element. If I would now create two div elements as childs, so div, and in each one, let's say h1 child1, and then inside of here, h1 child2. And if I now save that and actually go back, what you would see now is right here, child1 and child2. So what does exactly justify between mean? It just pushes both childs to the most outer screen, so to the left corner and to the right corner, as you see right here. Now there's one thing I don't like currently. You see that both childs actually, I guess, I don't know, touch the end of the screen, so they touch the screen border. I don't like that. I want to, of course, have some padding. And also in a block, I, of course, want to have a smaller width. Now, how do I create that? Well, it's actually quite simple. I will have to give it a max width. So let's first of all give it a max width, and then now you can choose any value. So you have 2XL, 3XL, etc., etc. You see right here also the corresponding pixel size. Let's actually see how 2XL looks like. Let's go back. And yeah, that looks fine. But now one thing you see is that it's not centered. So our child 1 touches the border of the screen, but our child 2 does not. So let's do an MX of auto. Let's see. Yeah, that looks better. Let's also do a padding X of 4, I guess, and a padding Y of 5. And yeah, I think that looks fine. Let's go back. Yeah, that looks quite nice. Let me now delete the two div child elements. I don't need them anymore. Let's now create a link component. And now what exactly is the link component? First of all, it's imported from next/link. And it's actually quite the equivalent to the A tag, so the normal A tag that you know from HTML. The only difference is actually that it uses client-side navigation and prefetching and a bit of other stuff. The TLDR of that is we use the link component because we don't want to refresh our page and we want to have the bonus of prefetching. With the A tag, what we'll get is that we'll have a full page refresh, and I see that as a not good UX practice, and I actually like client-side navigation, and that's why we'll use the link component. So let's give it an href, and this will just be the normal slash, and then let's name it Marshall, let's use a span, and let's say block. Then let me style the link component. So let's give it a class name. This will be font of bold and text, which will be 3XL. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks quite alright. Let me also style the span right here, and let me give it a class name of text blue 500. Let's go back. Yeah, I actually quite like that. So this looks now quite good. And what I want to do now is create a theme switcher, as you know. Now for the theme switcher, I will actually use a component library, and to be exact, Shadcn UI. So let me head over to Shadcn. So I'm now at Shadcn UI, and if you didn't know, Shadcn UI is a component library which was built on Radix UI. Radix UI is an accessible, non-styled component library, so Shadcn UI takes all the benefits of Radix UI, combines them with styling, and creates a beautiful component library. So that's why we will use Shadcn UI in this project. I will now right here click on Documentation, Installation. For the framework, we'll of course use Next.js. Then right here we have a quick start guide, and the first step is to create a project. We already created a project, so the second step is to run the CLI. So let me copy that. We'll use npm, of course. Let me open my terminal, let me stop my dev server, let me clear everything, and let me paste the CLI command. It will now ask me a few questions. So do we want to use TypeScript? Sure. Let's use the default style. Let's use slate as our base color. Our globals.css file is in the correct directory. Then we'll use CSS variables, why not? Now for the Tailwind.config.js, that's a bit wrong. So if you check right here your Explorer, you see we have a Tailwind.config.ts, and right here it tells us .js, and we use the TypeScript file, so let me change that. So let me copy that and change the name to ts. Then our import alias is correct, and our import alias for utils is also correct. Then it asks me right here if I use React Server components, of course, because Next.js 14. And then let's write a configuration file. And now this should actually implement everything. Now you will see two things actually. First of all, right here we have a components.json file. And if you go to package.json, you will see that a few things have been installed. So for example, Tailwind CSS animate, Tailwind merge, CLSX, and class variance authority. Now that's just a few things that Shadcn UI needs. Also an important thing is Lucid React. Lucid React is an icon library, and it's quite nice. It's also what I use in my personal projects, so it's quite nice that I use it right here. But now let's go back actually, and let's scroll down. Is there anything more interesting? Nope, I don't think so. One thing I could do now is actually install the button. So let's search for a button. And right here you will have a CLI command. Let me copy that actually. Let's go back and let me paste it right here. This will now just add our button or the component button. And you can actually see that if you close everything, go to the components folder, you now have a button.tsx file. So this looks quite nice in my opinion. So now instead of using text blue 500, what I can actually use is text primary. So that's the styling that comes from Shadcn UI. And now instead of a instead of a blue color, we now have a black color. Where does it come from? Well, if you open globals.css, right here you have your CSS variables. And we can actually change our theme. So if I go back to Shadcn UI, click on themes right here, I can use any theme. So I will use right here this blue theme. I can click on copy code. Let me click on copy. Let me go back. Let me delete everything right here, everything inside of this layer base, and paste what I've copied. And if I go back, you now see, I again see this blue color, which is nice. And the nice thing with Shadcn UI is that you now have actually a design system, and you have a certain amount of equality in that sense. So what do we do now? We have now our h1 tag. I think we should now actually create the dark mode switcher. For that, we're going to have a nice actually docs page right here. So if you click on documentation, click on dark mode and click on Next.js, it actually tells you how to implement dark mode. So first of all, we have to install Next Themes. Next Themes is actually the package which helps you make dark mode work. So let me click right here on npm. Let's go back. Let me stop my dev server right now. Let me clear everything and let me paste the installation command right here. So now you see Next Themes has been installed. Let's go back. Let's see what the next step is. The next step is to create a theme provider. So inside of your components, let's create a new theme provider.tsx file. So let me open my Explorer. Let's go inside of our app folder, inside of our components folder, and let me create this theme provider.tsx. Inside of here, I can now just copy this code block right here, paste that, and this should actually look good. Now, if I go back, the next step is to wrap our root layout with our theme provider. Why is that? Well, that's because our theme provider, or in that sense, our theme, has to be passed to our children and be made, I guess, global. Also one thing that is important, right here we use the use client directive. Why is that? Well, if we wouldn't add that, Next.js would assume that this is a server component. And with server components, you can't use state. Why? Because state has to run on the client. That's why we have to mark this file as use client, so that Next.js knows, hey, this file needs client, so let's hydrate it on the client. So now this looks good. So let's go to our layout.tsx, which is our root layout. And if I go back, you now see that inside of our body element, I have to wrap my children inside of the theme provider. So let me first of all make a bit of space right here for our theme provider. And then let me copy this code right here. So the theme provider code, let me add it above the children. And then let me close the theme provider right here. And now we have to import that. One important thing is don't import that from next-themes, import that from your components. If you import it from next themes, you will get an error. And you of course don't want that. And now the last step that we have to do is actually add a mode toggle. So this button right here to switch between the themes. And that's exactly what we'll do. So let me open the code field right here and we'll just copy this code actually. So let me just copy that. Let's go back. Let's go to our Explorer, inside of the app folder, inside of the components, and let's create a mode toggle.tsx. Now I can just paste this code actually. Now our imports are incorrect, so I will delete this import, and then we'll need the dropdown menu trigger. So what we need is to install our dropdown from Shadcn UI. So let me go to documentation. Let's search for dropdown menu right here. That looks good. I can now click on CLI to install it. So let's click npm. Let's open the terminal and install our dropdown menu. So our drop-down menu has been now finally installed. So now I can import all of the individual items right here. So the important thing now is it isn't imported from Radix UI because Radix UI isn't styled. So right here you should add the import from add components. Do that for all of the items, add components, for drop-down menu component, also from our components, then from our drop-down menu item, also from our components. And now everything has been imported and that looks nice. What I can do now is go to our navbar component and then under the link component, let me import our mode toggle.tsx. So now let's go back, let's go to our localhost, let me reload the page and we get an error. Why is that? That's because our dev server is not running. So let me clear everything right now and let's do an npm run dev to restart our dev server on localhost 3000. So now my dev server is finally running again, and what do you see on the right side? Well, you see the mode toggle button. So I think we should test it out, right? Let me click on it. And now we have right here these options, light mode, dark mode or system. Let me click on dark. Yes, this works. We now have dark mode. Let me click on system. We still have dark mode because my system preference is set to dark mode. Let me again click on light mode. And as you see, this works perfectly. Also, if I click on dark mode now and reload the page, you'll see that we still have dark mode. So our preference is stored. That's very nice. Let me go back to light mode. So now what's the first thing I don't like? Well, it's actually quite simple. Right here you see we have this padding on the left side and on the right side. But our hello from the index page, so our index page file, does not have the same padding. So what I can actually do is quite simple. Let's go to our layout.tsx and let me open also my navbar. And the difference is that right here we have a max width 2xl with an mx of auto and a padding x of 4. What I will just do now is copy the styling, so max width 2xl, mx auto and padding x4, go to my layout.tsx, and then I will wrap my children inside of a main element, give it a class name of what I've just copied. Let me wrap now my children inside of here. And now if I save it and go back, you now see we actually have the same padding. Actually not quite the same, because as you see, we have here a bit more padding than here. Let me check what exactly the problem is. I don't know right now. So the problem is now where I check a bit about it. As you see, if I open right now my DevTools, right here we have our layout with a max width of 2xl and padding x of 4. Now the problem is our navbar has again the same styling, which also gives a padding x of 4. I don't want that. So the thing is, what I will do now is actually, instead of rendering my navbar inside of this component right here, inside of page.tsx, I will delete it from here. And instead of rendering it inside of the page.tsx, I will render it inside of the layout file. So right above this main element, I will now render my navbar component. So let me import that again from my components. And if I now go back, save everything, we get an error, that looks now fine. You still see everything works. So now our padding is correct. So now we can actually fetch our content. So let's go back to our page.tsx, which is right here. And I think the first thing we should do now is, instead of creating the UI, let's fetch our data. And for that, I will create a new async function. So let's do an async function. Let's call it get data. And then let me just open the function inside of here. Now, right here, we'll have to write in query and then fetch the data. Now, how do you query data from Sanity? That's an interesting question. Let me zoom out a bit from here. That's an interesting question because actually Sanity uses its own query language. And the query language is called Grok. And at first it could be a bit complicated for you guys. But trust me, once you use it a bit, it's so simple and you don't really want to use anything else. So how do you start the query? First of all, again, I'm right here in the Vision tab, and the Vision tab is just a file or a tab where you can actually test out your query. Now, how do you start off? Well, you always start with the asterisk symbol and an empty array. Or actually, you don't even need the empty array. If I right now click on fetch, you'll see that we get everything from Sanity. So this asterisk symbol just tells Sanity, hey, fetch everything you have, like really everything you have, just give it to me. Now, this is not perfect because you fetch a lot of stuff that you don't really even need. What you can do now is actually exclude a few things, or in that sense, actually tell Sanity what you actually need. So for that, you can use these array brackets right here. And now right here, let's give it a type or an underscore type, and this should be now equal to a document that you have created. So if you go back to our schema file, to our block.ts, you know that our name or our document is called block. So what I can do right here is now, if what we want is everything where the type is equal to block. If I now click fetch, you see we only get 4 items back. So in total, we get 4 block articles back. That's perfect, and that's exactly what I want. Now, there's one thing, actually. For our index page, I don't need everything. So, for example, I don't need the content right now. I don't need, what else do I not need? I don't need the hero image, for example. I don't need, right here for the slug, this underscore type. I don't need it. I just need the most basic stuff to actually make it a bit more simple, but also to reduce my bandwidth. And for that, again, you can filter what you need with these object brackets. I don't even know how they are called, but with this, I can now actually tell Sanity what I need from my block document. So what do we need? Let's start off with the title. I, of course, need the title. Then what else do I need? I need a small description right here. So let me copy that, paste that. What else do I need? I think I, of course, need the slug. Now, the interesting thing is with the slug, as you see, you have 2 things. The slug has actually 2 children. So first of all, the current, and that's our slug name, and the type. Now, I don't need the type, and I only need the slug.current. So how do you do that? Well, you create a new field. Let's name it current slug. And this will just be equal to slug.current. If I now click on fetch, you now see title, small description, and the current slug, which is equal to the actual slug value. So this works nicely. So now we have the title, small description, current slug. What else do we need? Let me think about it. I actually think for now we don't need anything else. Now there's one important thing. Currently our items are fetched, I guess randomly. I don't even know how they are fetched. Now I want to actually order them by the created at timestamp. So I want to order by the newest block article. So the newest article should be on the top and the oldest article should be the last inside of the array. And for that, right here, you have a query doc cheat sheet that you can search for. And it will just be a cheat sheet of Grok queries, which you can actually check and see how they work. And what I can do now is search for order or sorting. No, ordering was correct. And if I scroll down a bit, right here, you can order your results. So based by created at timestamp and then either ascending or descending. So let me actually copy this right here. you actually paste that, whereas our vision right here, it's here, you actually just paste it right here after the array brackets, and right here you just tell it order created at ascending. I don't want to do it ascending, I want to do it descending. If I now click fetch, you now see that actually our items are fetched by the created at timestamp, which is descending, which means that we only fetch based on the newest timestamp, or which is the newest created at timestamp. And this looks good to me, this is correct. So this now also works. So what I can do now is actually copy this query right here. Let me go back to our page.tsx and let's do const query. This will be equal to upticks right here. So not this, but upticks. And then let me just paste our query that I've just written. So what we have right now is a static query. What do I mean? Well, currently this query does nothing. We don't fetch the data, and to fetch the data you actually have to create a client, a Sanity client, because we have to somehow connect to our Sanity backend. We do that with a Sanity client, then we fetch our data through this query and we get our data. So what we'll do right now is actually create a Sanity client with which we can then fetch our data using this query. So what I want to do right now is actually go inside of my app folder, create a new folder called lib, and then inside of the lib folder I want to create a new file called Sanity.ts. Now inside of this file I want to create the Sanity client. And for this we'll actually need a package, so open your terminal right now. This takes a bit for me, and what I want to now install is npm I next-sanity. This is the Sanity package for Next.js, or the client package, however you want to name it. And with the help of this package we can then fetch our data. So this takes now a bit, so let's wait for that. Now, one thing maybe, if you don't want to spell the installation commands like I do right here in the video, or you want to make sure that you spell everything correctly, you can go to my GitHub. I will have the command for all the packages, just an npm I with all packages. You can click that, install that, and then you don't have to install everything manually as the video progresses. So if you want to do that, but I will just do it like that right now. And now our package should be already installed in a second. So our package is now installed, so I can now use this next-sanity package inside of this file right here. So what I will do is now import something. Let me destructure create client, and create client is imported from next-sanity, as you see right here. So what I will do now is create a export const. Let's name it, I think client is sufficient enough. This will be equal to create client, not create, but create client. And then inside of here, we have to pass actually 3 values. So first of all, our project ID, our data set, and our API version. So let's start off simple. Our API version, this will just be encapsulated in a string, and this will be a value of 2023-05-03. This is just the API version that we want to use. Then for the data set, this is also very simple. If you can remember from our installation command, we created this npm, I don't know, create sanity at latest. We have a clean template and a name, and at the end we had a data set and we named it production. So that's exactly what our data set is. So right here we just write production, and then the last value which we have is the project ID. The project ID, for that we have to go to Sanity.io, manage our project, and there you'll see the project ID. So let me head over to Sanity. So I'm now at Sanity.io, as you see, and I just clicked on manage projects, searched for my project, and that's right here. So right here you see your project ID, and that's exactly the value we need. So what I will just do is copy it and then paste it right here, since that's what we need. And also you don't have to store it in a environment variable. It's fine if you do it like that, but you can do it under a next_public and store it like that if you want to, but I won't. The last value which I will set is the useCDN, and useCDN is a boolean, and this is just a question, or Sanity in that sense asks you if you want to use the CDN or the built-in CDN or not. But since we use Next.js 14 with built-in caching, I don't need it, so I would set it to false. And I would also encourage you to set it to false, since at the end of the day we use ISR. So that looks good, and now we can actually use that to fetch our query. And that's exactly what we'll do right now. So let's go back to page.tsx. we have our query right here, and what I can do now is create a constant data. This will be equal to await client. Now client is imported from our lib file or lib folder with the sanity file. Let's do a dot fetch and let's pass our query as an argument. So that looks nice. The last thing we have to do is return our data. So let me spell that. And now our server component, or in that sense, our function to get our data works. So what we can do now is inside of our export default function, we can get our data. So let's do a constant data. This will be equal to await get data. Now you see we get an error right here, and it tells me await expressions are only allowed within async functions. And since we are in a server component, I can mark this function as async, and this is totally safe since everything runs on the server. Now let's see if our query actually works. So what I can do is right here just in console.log and let me log my data. Now let me again open my terminal, clear everything, start my dev server since it's currently not running. This will now open on localhost 3000. So let me head over to Chrome. So I'm now on localhost 3000. Let me zoom in again a bit. And if I now reload this page, let's get back to our project, open the terminal. What do you see? Well, you see our data. So we have an array of in total, I think 4 objects. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, correct. 4 objects because we have 4 blog posts. You see, this works perfectly just like I wanted. Now, there's one problem right now. If I hover over data, you see it tells me data is of type any. Now, we use TypeScript, and in TypeScript, we always, of course, want to have types. And if we don't get any types, then the question arises, why the hell do we even use TypeScript if we could just use JavaScript in that case? So what we'll do is actually create an interface, and then with the interface, we will get all the types. So what I want you to do right now is open your Explorer. Let's go inside of the app folder, lib folder, and let's create a new file called interface.ts. Now inside of this interface.ts, I will create an interface with the types. So right here you see our 3 types. We have a title, a small description, and a current slug. And that's all we need. So right here what I'll do is an export interface. Let's name it simple block card, and let me open that. Now again, what do we get? We get a title. Let me get that. This right here is in string. Then what else do we get? We get a small description. This is also in string, so let's set it to string. And then the last value we have is the current slug. So let me get that and set it to string. So now what we can do is actually right here, our data, we can give it in type. So let's do simple block card. And now there's one problem. Data now assumes that I guess the response is just an object. This is of course not true, because if you open your terminal, you see we get an array and not an object. So let me set simple block card to an array, and now we know that data is an array with multiple objects of our simple block card. So this looks now very nice, and what we can do now is actually show our data to the screen. So let's do that. Now currently, as I'm looking at the code, maybe one thing we should also get is our main image. So let me see how I named it. So our interface is called block or schema, I'm sorry. And we named our image, where is it? Small description here. We named it title image. So let me also get it actually right here. So I can get my title image. Then let me put it also in our interface, title image, which will be of type any. And yeah, I think that's fine. So now let me actually create the UI for our posts. So let me first of all delete this div and let me create a new div element since I want to start off fresh. Let me start off with styling it. So let's give it a class name of grid. Let's give it a grid calls of 1. So if we are on a mobile device, I only want to show one card vertically. So always just one card and not horizontally, for example, 2 cards. Now, if we are of course on a bigger device, I of course want to also show my block cards horizontally. So what I can do is on an LG device, so on a large device, let me give it a grid calls of, let's say, 4. And let's also do margin top of 5. And now inside of this div, I can map over my data. So let's do data.map. Let's get a post, and then let me just return that. So now inside of here, I actually want to use a Shadcn UI component, which is the card component. And if you currently check our Explorer inside of the components folder, you see we only have the button component and the drop-down menu component. So if I now go to ui.shadcn.com, what I want to get now is the card component. So that's right here. let me copy right here the CLI command, npm of course. Let me open my terminal. I will stop my dev server, clear everything, paste the command. This will now install the card component. Let me restart my dev server since we'll need it in a second. And now our card is installed. So I can now use this card component right here. And as you see, it's imported from our components. Let me open that. Inside of here, we get an error and it tells me I have to use the key prop. This is needed to prevent hydration errors. So let's give it a key, and the key will actually, right here, let me just also get the IDX, and then the key will be the IDX. The IDX is just the iterator, so I guess data is just mapped, and then every object gets an iterator, so we can use that, that's fine. We don't need any class names. Inside of here, I can now use the image component from next image, and now we have to give it a source. And for the source, this is again interesting because let me just delete this image for now. Because what I want to do now is actually console log the data, and I want to show you something. So let's go back. Let me go to localhost 3000, reload the page. Let me open my terminal. This compiled. Let's wait for that. Now it's compiled. So what do you see right here? Our title image does not give us back a URL as you would think, but what we get is actually an object. As you see, we have an underscore type and we have an asset. Now, you can't really get the URL fast. You could, of course, query it somehow, like here it's fine. So what do you do now? You have an image and you don't have the URL. Well, in Sanity, or in the case of Sanity, there's an actually nice helper library which you can use, which is Sanity image URL. And this is what we'll use. So what I will do right now is let me stop my dev server again. I know stopping and creating one is annoying, but what I want to install is now the Sanity image URL. With the help of this package, I can then actually transform the images and get the URLs. So this is now installed. Let me go back to our sanity.ts file, so where we create our client. And now inside of here, I want to create the function to convert images to an URL. So for that, we have to create a constant builder. This will be equal to a function provided by Sanity, our image URL library. So let me import image URL builder. Right here, don't choose this default import alias. This is incorrect. So let me import it just manually. So builder, and this will be equal or from @sanity image URL. So this is the correct import alias. Be sure that you spell it correctly because the default import alias is incorrect. So this can now be set equal to image URL builder, and let's pass our client as an argument. What we have to do now is create a function. So let's do an export function. This will be called, let's name it URL4. We have an parameter right here. This will be the source. Let me set it to any, and let's open that. Now inside of here, we have to return our builder. Now this is spelled incorrectly. Let me spell builder correctly. And what we can do now is return builder.image, and we can pass our source as an argument. So now we have created the function to convert the image object to an image URL. So what I can do now is go back to my page.tsx and now use the image component again. So let me actually do that. So let me get the image component. As you see, it's already imported right here from next/image. This is a self-closing tag. Let me give it in source. The source will be now the URL4 function you imported from this lib folder. Then we have to pass our post.title image. And now the important thing is, at the end, you have to mark it as .url. Because if you don't do that, you don't get the URL and you will get an error. You don't want that. Now, one important thing is also add an alt tag to not get the errors right here. Let's just say, I don't know, image. Let's save that. Let's see how that looks. Let me reload the page. Again, my dev server is not running. So let me restart that. This will take a second. So let's wait for that. So my dev server has restarted and now we get an error. So image source is missing required width property. So if you use the image component provided by Next.js, you have to actually add a width and a height property so that an image component knows to what size it should resize. Now, why do you use the image component and not the normal HTML image tag? Well, that's because the image component actually, just like the link component, adds a few nice actual benefits. And that's why I use the image component. If you want to know more about the image component, you can head over to the docs, learn more. but I won't explain it any further. But what I will do now is add in width, which will be 500, a height, which will be also 500, and let's save it. Let's see. Do we get an error? Yes, invalid source prop on next image hostname cdn.sanity.io is not configured. So what's the error right here? Well, if you didn't know, with Next.js or with the image component, you actually have to tell it what hostname is used. With that, you actually prevent any attacks from any, I don't know, hackers, because at the end of the day, the image component has also a price after a certain amount. And with that, you're just safe, hey, only resize the images from this URL and then you're safe. So what do we have to do? Let's go to next.config.js. Then right here, what we have to do is get our images right here. Then we get our remote patterns. This is an array with objects. And then right here, we have a few values. First of all, the protocol. Now the protocol is HTTPS, not HTTP. Our host name, as you already saw right here, is cdn.sanity.io. So let me add that. And the last thing is the port, and I will just leave it as an empty string. I can now save that. If you open your terminal, you will see that our dev server will restart automatically for us. This is a nice Next.js feature. So if I now reload the page, you will see it takes a bit. So let me wait for that. So this is how it currently looks for me, and it looks quite ugly as you see. I don't like it. So let me change a few things. First of all, LG grid calls for. I don't want that again. Let me just delete it and let's leave it at md grid calls 2. So now you see we have 2 grid calls. That looks fine, I think. Now right here, object cover is spelled incorrectly for me. So let me spell object cover again correctly. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks fine in my opinion, actually. I want to leave it like that. Let's see how it looks in dark mode right here. Yeah, it's right here up to the top. That's fine in my opinion. We of course also have to add a bit of gap. So let me do a gap of, let's say 5. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, I can live with that actually, I think. So now you see we have on the top a little bit of rounding and on the bottom not. So what I want to do now is actually on the bottom is add a title or description and a button to read more. So for that, what I want to do is inside of the card component and under the image component, I want to now import our card content. This is imported from our components. Let me also give it a class name, which will be margin top of 5. And then inside of here, I will have an h3 and then render my post.title. Let's see how that looks. So now you see we have a title. Now one thing you see is the title is not big enough right now. So let me make it a bit bigger. Let me give it actually a class name. Let's test out what size looks good. Let's do a text of LG. Let's see. Yeah, that's fine. I think maybe XL. How does that look? Yeah, that's fine. If I zoom out on a normal device, maybe the lines are a bit too big actually. Let's leave it at LG. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's fine. One thing I want to do also is add a line clamp. And with the line clamp, I can tell the code right here that the title should be maximum of 2 lines. I think that looks better actually. Now, the next thing I want to do is show our small description. So let's use a p tag right here. And let me render right here our post.small description. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks quite ugly. Yeah, does not look good. I'm sorry. So let's change that. Let me first of all actually do again a line clamp. So let's do a line clamp of, let's say 3. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that's already a bit better. Let's also change the sizing of maybe text small. Yeah, I think that's fine. And then also, I don't really like the color right now. So our title is white and our description is also white. Let's see first of all how it looks again in light mode. Yeah, let's change that. First of all, margin top of 2 or 3. Nah, let's leave it at 2. Let's do a text gray of 600. Let's see. Yeah, that looks fine. And on dark mode, how does it now look? Nope, that does not look good. So let's do on dark a text of gray 400 or 300. I think that's better actually. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's quite alright. I can live with that. Now the last thing I want to do is add a button, and with the button then the user can click on the blog article and actually see the full blog article. So under the p tag, let me import the button component again from our components. Right here I can mark it as child, and with that I just tell Shadcn UI, hey, under this button or inside of this button, I want to render another component or element, whatever you want. Right here, let me also give it a class name of W full and margin top of 7. And then inside of here, I can now render a link. The link component is imported from next link. Let me give it an href. This will just be, let's use this upticks right here. So /block / a dynamic value, which will be post.current slug. Now right here, we can just render read more. I think that's fine. Let's see how that looks. Read more. Yeah, that looks fine. Let's see how it looks on a light device, so in light mode. Yeah, I think that looks quite nice actually. So read more, we have the title, and then we have right here our description. Maybe we can make our title a bit more bold. So let's right here do a font of, yeah, bold. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, I think that's fine actually. I like that. So now what happens if we click on this read more button? Let me do that. And we get redirected to /block / mastering web development with Next.js, so our slug, but we see no content. We get a 404. That's not what we want. So what I'll do right now is actually create a page where the user can then read more about our blog article. You see, we redirect to /block / our slug. So we have to create a normal route, and then inside of this route, we'll have a child route, which will be a dynamic route. So how do we do that? Well, you go in the app folder, we create a block folder, and then inside of here, we can use these array brackets and give it any name, so slug. With that, we tell Next.js, hey, I want to have a normal route, so right here block, and then inside of here, I will have a child route, which is dynamic. As you see, I tell it with these array brackets, and then I can query this dynamic value using the slug. Now inside of the slug folder, let me create a new file called page.tsx, and now we have created our route for the blog article. So what we can do right now is right here a export default function. Let's name it slug, or let's name it a blog article. Let me open that function. Let's do a return statement. Let's right here do an h1 statement, and let's just say hello from the blog article route, something like that. And now let's see if this works. So if I now click on read more, we'll get redirected to /block / the slug. Let me again zoom in. And then you see an h1 right here with hello from the blog article route. So now you see we don't get any errors anymore. And now the nice thing with this dynamic route, we can actually get this slug right here, so the value. How do we do that? Well, we get it through the params right here. We can write here the structure params, and now we have to give it, of course, in type. So params will have in type of slug, which will be a string. So what I can do now right here, instead of rendering h1 hello from whatever, I can get my params, and this will be params.slug. If I save that, go back, and now you will see we get our slug right here. SvelteKit Unleashed transforming web development with ease. And this is the same slug which is also inside of our URL, as you see right here. So now we can actually query our data based on the slug, and we also get it right here on our page. So this looks good. So what do we do now? I think the time has now come to fetch our data, or to fetch our blog article based on the slug, and then code the UI for the slug or for the article. So what I will do right now on top is, of course, create a new function. Let's do an async function. Let's call it get data, and then let me open this function. Now inside of here, we of course again have to write our query. And for that, we again have to use the Grok query language provided by Sanity. And for that, I think we should again go to Sanity Studio, use the Vision tab, and see everything again with an actual visual interface. So let me open again my terminal. Let me open a new terminal tab. Let me cd into Sanity. Let's do npm run dev. This will again open on localhost 3333. Let's see right here. So let me go there. So I'm now on localhost 3333. You see our old query right here. Let me delete it. I don't need it anymore. And now we'll start off fresh. So how do we start again? First of all, we again start with an asterisk symbol. If I click on fetch, you'll see that with this, I tell Sanity, hey, give me all the data you have, everything you have. Now, of course, we don't need that. We only want to get a specific blog article. So let me filter down what I need. For that, I use the array brackets, use the underscore type, and this will be equal to block. If I now click fetch, you will see we only get 4 items. This is good, but still not perfect. I don't want to get 4 items, I only want to get 1 item. So how do I get only 1 item? Well, I have to use a multiple filter. So if this multiple and filter, I tell Sanity right here, hey, get me this, and also this should be also true. So right now, hey, I want to get type block, and I also want to get the article, which is equal to the slug. So right here we can do slug.current, and this should be equal to a slug. So let's right here just pass a default slug. So if I go back to our website, we have this Shadcn slug. I will copy that, paste it right here. And if I now click fetch, we should only get 1 item back. And what you see, we only get 1 item back. So again, what have we done to summarize? So we use the asterisk symbol and then the array brackets, since I don't want to get everything, but I want to filter what I get. Then I tell Sanity, hey, give me the type block. With that, I get 4 articles, but I only want to get 1 article. And to specify what article I want to get, I use the multiple filter and then tell Sanity, hey, the slug.current should be equal to the following slug. So that's what I do right here. Now, if you open right now our response, you see we get everything from this response. So the title, image, the small description, the created at timestamp, the content, what else do we have? Let me scroll down. We have the slug with an underscore type. So again, we get a lot of stuff and I don't need most of the stuff. So what I want to do is actually filter a bit. So let's again use these object brackets right here. And now I can tell Sanity what I need. So first of all, I need the slug. And what I want to do is actually the exact same as we did in the previous example. So we create a new type called current slug. And this will be equal to slug.current. If I now fetch that, you see we get current slug with the actual slug. So this is nice. Now what's the next thing I want? I want to get the title, then I want to get the content, and the last thing I want to get is the title image. Let's see if we get everything. We get the current slug, we get the title, we get the content, we get the title image, and this looks great. Now there's still one thing I don't like. Even though we get only 1 item back, and I know that we only get 1 item back because our slug is a unique identifier, our response is still an array. I don't know why, or I know why, but we don't need an array. So what I can do, and also that's what Sanity actually recommends you to do, is just to get the first item in the array. So with an array symbol and a 0, I tell Sanity, give me the first item in the array, and with that I now only get 1 object back, and I don't have to map over an array, even though I know there's only 1 object inside of it. So now we have written a successful query, and now we can use that. So let me copy this query again. Let's go back. Let me stop my or close my terminal. And inside of here, let's do now a const query, which will be equal to upticks. And now inside of this upticks, I can paste my query. Now, right here you see we have a static slug. So even though if I maybe click on a different block than this block right here, I would still fetch the content for the same block, if you understand what I mean. What I want to do is get the dynamic slug right here, which we get, and then pass it right here. So what we can do right here is through the params, get a slug, let me set it to string, and what I can do now inside of here, instead of using this default value, let me delete that, let's still use these string columns, and now I can get my dynamic value with slug. So this looks great, and now this works. Let me now actually fetch our query. So let's do const data, which will be equal to await client. Client is imported from our lib folder, dot fetch, and let me pass my query. Now let's of course also return our data, and this looks beautiful. Now we have to get our data in our component. So what I have to do right here is say const data, and this will be equal to await get data, and yeah, that looks good. Now we don't get 1 error anymore, but we get 2 errors. First of all, the first error is the await error. So await expressions are only allowed with an async functions. We already know how to fix this error. We just have to give it an async modifier. So this looks good. But now our getData function also gives us an error. And right here it expects 1 argument but gets 0. Why does it expect an argument? Well, because right here we gave it a param of slug. So we have to pass our function now this argument. So right here what we can do is get our params.slug. and now we don't get any error anymore, as you see. So let's do a console.log and let's log the data. Let's save that. Let's go back. Let me reload the page. Let me go back, open the terminal. Let's go to the other terminal tab. And now you see we get the data. So we only get one object, as you see right here. We only get one, not an array anymore. We get the current slug, the title, the content, and at the end, the title image. So this looks beautiful, and we actually get the data. So now we again have one error, or one problem, not an error. If I hover over data, we don't have any types. And as you know, what we can do now is create an interface again. So let me export a new interface. This will be now called, I don't know, full block. And let me open that. Now, what types do we get? Let me head back. We get in current slug, so let me get that. This will be of type string. Then what else do we get? We get a title. Let me get that. This will be of type string. Then let's see what else we get. We get content. This is of type any. So let me set that. And then the last field or the last type is title image. And this will be also type any. So this looks very nice. I can save that. And now for data, I can give it the type of full block. Now right here, I don't have to add any array symbols. That's because full block is just an object, and our data that we get is also just an object. So now let's actually show our data to the user. So what do? Let me first of all delete this return. Let's create a new return statement. So inside of here, let me actually render a div element. And then inside of here, let me do an h1 tag. And then inside of here, I want to now render two span elements. So let's start with the first one. And inside of here, I want just to say Jan, Marshall, and then let's say block. Let's see how that looks. So Jan, Marshall, block. Looks fine, not good. So let's change that. It's quite simple. Let me actually style the span element right here. Let's give it a class name of block, text, which will be base. Let's do a text, which will be center. And then let's do a text, which will be primary. Let's see first of all how that looks. That looks already a bit better. It's now in the middle and we have our brand color as you see right here. Let me now make it also a bit bigger. So let's do right here a font, which will be semi-bold. And then also tracking, which will be white. And then let's do uppercase. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks fine. And I think I don't have to change anything more. Let me think about it. And now I think that looks good, so I don't have to change anything more. Now underneath this, I want to actually render also the title of our blog article. So under the span, let me create another span element. Let me right here render our data.title. And let me also style it. So let's give it a class name, margin top of 2, since I want to create a bit of margin. Let's do a block element, text, which will be, let's say, 3XL, why not? Text, which will be center. Let's also do a leading, which will be 8. Font, which will be, let's say bold. We will see how that looks. Tracking, which will be tight. And then let's do an SM of text 4XL. Let's see how that looks. SvelteKit Unleashed, transforming web development with ease. I think that looks quite good. The only thing I want to change right now is create a bit of margin between my navbar and my title right here. I think it's a bit too spaced in, if you understand what I mean. So what I will do right here is give it a class name, so our div, and let's do a margin top of, let's say 6. Let's see how that looks. We can give it a bit more, 8. Yeah, I think that's fine. Let's see dark mode. And that looks also quite good. Let me again zoom out a bit. Yeah, I think we can leave it like that. So what I want to do now is render our image, so our title image. Let me go under the h1 tag. Let me import our image component from next image. Inside of here, we again have to pass our source. This will be again the URL4 function imported from our lib folder. Then inside of here, we have to pass as an argument our data.title image, and at the end do a .url. Now we'll see if I save that and go back, we'll get an error. And it tells me that I'm missing a width property. And if you can remember, I have to add a width and height property. So let's add that. Let's give it a width, which will be 800. And let's do also in height, which will be also 800. Now the last thing I will do is add an alt tag. And let's just say, I don't know, title image. I think that's fine. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, it looks all right. It could be better. So what I want to do is give it a class name. And then let's do rounded, since I want it to be rounded, of LG. And I think margin top of 8. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks alright. Let me reload the page just to be sure. Yeah, I think that's good actually. Let's see how it looks in light mode. And right here you see the problem that our image has a white background, and with that you don't really see, I guess, the contrast between the image and the title, and it creates so much space. So what I want to do right here is add a border. So let's do a border, and then this should actually look better in white mode. Yes, this looks better. Let's see how that looks in dark mode. Yeah, that's fine. And one thing I can also add is a priority tag right here, or property. And with priority, I tell Next.js to load the image within priority. So if I again delete it right now, let me open my dev tools right here. Let me go to network and let me reload the page right now. So if you check it right now, you will see that the image is loaded right here. I think that's the right image. Let's see, preview. Yes, that's the image. And you see it's loaded only right here. You see that all of this stuff is loaded and then only our image. If I now add the priority tag right here, so let's do that, save that and actually reload our page, you will now see that this image is loaded right here at the third space or at the third place. So the image is loaded now with a priority before all of this stuff. So now you see that this image is loaded within priority, which is pretty cool in my opinion. So this works nicely, and now the last step has come, and that's to show our actual content. So let me actually do that. And now how do we show our content? Because what I will do right now is again console log our data. So let's do that. Console .log data, and let's open the terminal. What you'll see right here is that our content is an array with a lot of objects, as you see right here. So content array with really a lot of objects. And because of that, you of course can't just add a div tag and then show the content, because again, it's an array with objects. How would you do that? So for that, there's actually a cool package, which is Portable Text React. And this is also what actually the Sanity team recommends you to use. And with that, we can sanitize our content and show it to the client right here. So let me open my terminal right now. And then again, if you want to, just go to my GitHub and copy the installation command from there. But let's do an npm I add portable text react. With this, I install this package right here, and then we can sanitize the content from Sanity. So I've now installed that, and now we can actually use that. So now under my image component, let me create a div element. And let's give it a class name of margin top 16 for now. I will add more class names later, but for now I want to show my content. So I can now import our portable text component. This is imported from add portable text react, as you see. This is a self-closing tag. Now inside of here we have to add our value. So right here there's a value property, we have to add our content. So they have a value property, and now we can do data.content. And if I save that and go back, let me reload the page real quick. You see our dev server is not running. So let me restart that again. Let me go back and reload the page. So now our content has loaded, and here you see it. And it looks ugly. Who would have thought? So this really does not look nice. I don't like it. And there's actually a quite simple fix actually. And let me show it to you. Now, if you didn't know, Tailwind CSS has a very cool plugin system. And one plugin that they have and create themselves and also maintain is the Tailwind CSS typography plugin. With this, it's very easy to style your text without creating, I don't know, hundreds of styles. This is just a plugin, you use it and your text is beautiful at an instant. So what do we do? Right here you have an installation command. So let me copy that right now. So npm install development dependency Tailwind CSS typography. Let me open my terminal. Let me actually just open a new terminal tab. I think that's easier than just to restart our dev server every time. Let me install that. Then you will see that the next step is just to add it at our plugins array. So I will copy that. Let me go to tailwind.config.ts. Let's go to our plugins array right here. And let me add it right now. So now that's added. But if I go back actually and reload the page, you still see nothing has changed. And that's because I actually have to tell the code to use it. So right here, there's now a special class name called prose. And with this, I now styled my text. I can also give right here prose of blue and a prose of XL, so the size of the text. So now let me save it and let's see how that looks. Yeah, that does not look good. Why is it so dark? This is not good. Let's see how it looks in white mode. In white mode it looks quite nice actually, I have to admit, it's good, but in dark mode you see that the styling is not nice. So what you have to do is a quite easy fix. Right here we have our dark, and then we can do a pros of invert. Not video, I'm sorry, but invert. If I save that and go back, you should now see in dark mode we have now actually white styling, and this looks very nice in my opinion. Great, I like that very much. Now, since it works, let's actually test a few things out. Let's see what we can do actually with this pros class names. So right here we have headings, right? Let's say we want to give it an underline. Let's see how simple that is. We again use our pros class name, and what I can do now is actually use in pros headings. And with that I can just say underline. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, now you see all headings have an underline. Now, I wouldn't say that looks good, but I mean, you see what you can do. Let me again change that. Let's not do it like that. Now, maybe what's another thing that I want to change which will actually look good? So right here we have this bullet list, right? Let's say I want to change the color of the dots to my right here color. So my primary color, this blue color. Let's say I want to change that. How do I do that? Well, it's again quite simple. We again use our pros class name, and now I want to target a specific value. So what value is this right now? As you know, a bullet list is actually an unordered list with multiple LIs. So we want to target a LI element, then use the marker and give it a text of primary. If I save that and go back, you now see that the bullets have the color of this blue primary color. If I change it to white mode right here, you see it still kept persisted. This looks very nice. What's another thing you could do? Let's say you would have links right here. We currently don't have any links, and I also won't add any links right now, but let's just imagine you would have some. Let me show you how you would do that. Let's again use our pros class name, and then you can again target a specific value. So for that, this would be the A tag, and then I can just give it a text of again primary if I would want to. Then if we would have links right here, I don't have any, you would see that the color would also be blue. So very nice, of course. Now, I think actually we are already done. Let me actually test out if everything works. Let me click on my logo right here. We should get redirected to our homepage. That's exactly what happens. Let me now click on this remix blog article, read more. You see it loads right here. We have the image. We have our text right here. Everything is loading. That's great. Our bullet points have this blue color. This is very nice. Now, what's one thing maybe? For you, maybe this text is a bit too big. So what you can do is, instead of pros XL, let's do pros of LG. So this is now a bit smaller and maybe also a bit better. I think that looks even better right now. Let's see if the other blog article works. So let's click on, I don't know, next right here. This loads, we have the image and we have the text. Very nice. Let me again click on dark mode. Let's reload it. Does it keep persisted? Yes, it keeps persisted. This is very nice. Now let's see how it looks on mobile. So let me make it smaller. Yeah, this looks very good. Let me actually go back to the home page. And yes, this also looks very nice actually. Let me click on read more. This loads. Great. It works perfectly just like I wanted it. So now I would actually say we are done. And what do we do now? We will actually now deploy our application to Vercel, deploy our Sanity Studio, and then once everything is deployed, we will create another blog article and see if it shows up. Spoiler alert, it won't work, but I will show you how you will actually fix that in a second once we deploy our application. So right here I'm now at github.com/new, and now I can create a new repository. Let me name it Next.js 14 blog tutorial. I think that's fine. Let me delete this. I don't need that. I will leave it public, and then let me click on create repository. This takes a second, and now you see right here it gives me instructions how to connect my code to this repository. So let me open my terminal, let me clear everything, and then let's do a git init. This will initialize a new git repository. Then let's do a git add everything with a dot, and let's do a git commit -m, and let's say finished project. So let me click enter. You see everything has been added. If I now check right here the instructions, the next step is to create a branch. So let me copy that, paste that. Then the next step is to add a remote origin. I will copy that and paste that. And the last step is to push our code. So I will copy that and paste that, and now our code will be pushed to GitHub. If I go now to GitHub and reload the page, you will see our code in a second right here, and that's exactly what you see. This looks very nice. So now let's head over to Vercel and deploy this block. So I'm now at vercel.com/new as you see, and now we have our project right here, Next.js 14 block tutorial. I can click on import, this will now import my project. Right here we don't have to change actually anything, we don't have any environment variables, so that's fine. We can now click on deploy, and this will deploy our application to Vercel. Let's wait for that, this takes a few minutes, and if there's any errors, I will come back. So, we got an error. I know, exactly what we wanted. No, I'm joking. What's the problem? Right here Sanity, or I'm sorry, Vercel thinks that Sanity is actually a file that we want to deploy. I don't want to deploy Sanity. Sanity is a standalone project which does not need to be deployed to Vercel. So what I have to tell Vercel is actually, hey, don't deploy the Sanity folder. I don't need it. Leave it there, just deploy my code. For that, I will actually have to create a new file right here, just in a root folder, called .vercel-ignore, and then add the Sanity name. So because our folder is called Sanity, and if I name it Sanity, I tell Vercel, hey, ignore the Sanity folder, leave it right there, don't touch it. What I can do now is again open my terminal, clear everything, do a git add with a dot to add everything, git commit dash m, and let's say added Vercel ignore, and then let's do a git push to push our code to GitHub. Vercel will now automatically rebuild our project, so let's head over to Vercel and see that. So as you see right here, it now automatically rebuilds for us. This will now again take a bit, so let's wait for that. So great news, our project has been actually built successfully and it works as you see right here. So let me actually click on the URL and let's see how it looks like. So let me again zoom in a bit for you guys, since I know it's a bit too small, but here you have the code. Great, everything loads. I think light mode works, dark mode works, system mode works, great. I can click on a blog article, so let me click on it. This loads, we have the content right here, we have our bullet list, which is blue, we have the titles and the content, which looks very nice. Now this is actually great, you see we have deployed it and it works. So now let's deploy Sanity Studio. It's again very simple. I will open my terminal. Let me close all of these terminals for now. Let me just leave one terminal open. Let me clear everything. Let me now cd into the Sanity folder, because that's the folder we want to deploy. And what I will do is run npm run deploy. With this, I will now deploy our code or our Sanity Studio to Sanity. Right here tells me I have to actually give it a studio host name. So let's name it, I don't know, Next.js 14 block. Let's click enter. And now it creates an output folder and everything should work. So let's see, this should be quite fast actually. And what do you see? It has been actually deployed. So our Sanity Studio is now deployed to the global web. So let me now open this URL right here in Chrome. This loads, let's see. And right here, I'm already logged in. This looks great. You see I have 4 blog articles and this works. Now, I will actually show you now one thing that does not work. So as you see, I have 4 blog articles right now, right? This is good. Let's say I want to create another blog article. I will show you one error. So I will right here click on this plus icon to create another blog article. Let's give it a title of, hey, does this show up? Let's create this slug. Let me upload a image. So I've now uploaded an image right here. Let's give it a small description of, hey, how are you? La 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 la, some gibberish, and the same for content. So I've now created some gibberish, a title, a slug, and everything like that. Let me click on publish right now. And now this has been published. You see right here the green icon. Now, what do you think? Does this blog article now show up on our website? Because you would assume, hey, we do a fetch call, an API call to Sanity, we retrieve our data, and then we show it right here, right? Well, not quite. If I now reload this page, actually, you don't see anything. Where's the fifth blog article? I don't see it. Well, the problem is, if you're new to Next.js 14 and server components, you probably don't know that right now, if we don't add any revalidate tags, Next.js fetches the first fetch call indefinitely. So our fetch call, or these 4 blog articles, are now static in that sense. So even though we have new items in Sanity, it isn't shown right here. So what do we have? We have stale data. We don't want that. We want to get fresh data. So how do we do that? Well, we have to actually revalidate our cache. So that's again quite simple actually. And for that, let me actually open the docs real quick. So right here I'm now in the docs, and one thing you see right here tells us by default Next.js automatically caches the returned values of fetch in the data cache on the server. This means that data can be fetched at build time or request time, cached and reused on each data request. So what that means is the first time we actually fetch, so where the data is still not there, it will be in fresh request. But each subsequent request will be forever cached. You will never get fresh data. So what you can do now is actually quite simple, and that's add a revalidate tag. So right here they have a convention where they export a constant called revalidate, and then you give it in value in seconds, and it tells then Next.js, hey, after for example 30 seconds, revalidate my cache. So you could for example also add 0. With that you would tell Next.js, hey, don't cache the data at all. Each request I make should be actually fresh and don't do anything. But for example, you could also add 30 seconds. With that, actually you tell Next.js, hey, if a request comes in, give it the fresh request, then for 30 seconds, give it the cached result, and then again give it the fresh result after 30 seconds. So that's exactly what I will do right now. I will copy this export const revalidate. Then right here for our page/slug, I will add it right here above our async function. So let me add that. Instead of 3600, which is 1 hour, I will do 30, which is 30 seconds. And now I also want to do the same for our index page. So let me copy that and let me also change it from at most every hour, and let's do at most 30 seconds. Now let me copy that and paste it also to the index page. So above our async function get data, let me paste that, and this should now work. So now what you have to do is actually also push your code to GitHub. So what I will do now is say git add everything within dot. Let's do a git commit -m, and let's just say added revalidate tags. Then let's do a git push, and this will now push the code to GitHub. Now Vercel will automatically rebuild our application. So let's head over to Vercel. So now you see it automatically rebuilds for me, and this again will take a minute or two, so let's again wait for that. So it has been now successfully deployed. Let's see if this works. So right here we have now our code, and let me reload this page again, and now you see we have this blog article right here, and it's also shown at the top left because we order our results. If I click on read more, we should also see the article right here, and this works. Let me again test it out. I will create another article, so let me do that. So I've now created another demo article. I've published that as you see right here. Oh, it's not published right now. Let me click on publish again. This is now published, and in theory, I hope it works, I don't know, we should see the article in about 30 seconds. So I will now wait about 30 seconds to 1 minute, and then reload the page, and then I will see if it works, because maybe I have done something wrong. We'll see. So about 30 seconds have gone past, maybe a bit less, a bit more, I'm not quite sure. But what do you see? We see a blog article. Imagine that. Our page has now revalidated our cache. It saw that we have new data, and now we have our blog post right here. I can click on read more. You see it loads. We have the image and the data. So now we have actually a very cool application which is cached and is also revalidated. So when we write a new blog article, it is being automatically revalidated after about 30 seconds, and then we see it right here. So now we have deployed our application to Vercel, and we have also of course deployed our very cool Sanity Studio to the web. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We have now created everything is deployed, everything works, everything is great. I hope you could learn a lot, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I can see you on the next video. But now, bye.